Oftentimes, many of us set goals for ourselves based off some sort of extraneous variable or some sort of extraneous reasons, like we see something that we like or whatever, right? Like kind of like arbitrary reasons to set goals. And those things are fine, right? Like if you have a certain goal and you want to achieve it, that's fine. But I think it's really important to ask yourself, why do you want to achieve that goal in the first place? And then decide whether the sacrifices that are necessary to achieve that goal are worth it for you, right? Are you willing to make those sacrifices? The answer might be yes, and that would be great. And the answer might be no, and that's also fine, right? It's just a mental exercise that everybody should do before just deciding that they want to achieve a particular goal. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Dr. Joey Munoz Show. Today, we're going to be talking about identifying what your particular goals are, but more importantly, identifying why those goals are important to you and whether or not the goals that you set for yourself are actually the goals that you should be working towards. Right, so this is going to be a very practical episode that's going to give you a lot of stuff to think about. If you've been chasing a certain physique-related goal like weight loss or trying to build a certain amount of muscle and you haven't been making progress towards your goals and you really find like that you're spinning your wheels and you feel like you're frustrated, this episode might give you a lot of clarity and help you identify why you feel frustrated in the first place, okay? And I actually want to start this episode by sharing a story with you guys in terms of why I think this is an important topic to talk about in the first place. So, as some of you know, or as many of you know, I work as a coach, right? I work with clients one-on-one. I help people achieve their physique-related goals, whether that's weight loss, building muscle, etc., right? And I've had this conversation numerous times with clients. So I'm actually thinking about a particular conversation here I had with one of my clients. His name's Daniel. Him and I were on the phone. And Daniel has been training for numerous years. So he's well experienced when it comes to resistance training. He's healthy. By no means is he overweight. And he lives a very active lifestyle. He's a very healthy person. Right? But for the past year or two, he's really been trying to take his physique to the next level. And for him, that was really dropping some more body fat, having a nice ripped and lean looking physique. And he really wanted to have visible abs, right? So that would have required him to drop another 10 or 15 pounds. And keep in mind, he's starting from a place where he's already pretty lean and pretty healthy. And so for a couple of weeks, we were working together. His weight was pretty stable. He was feeling frustrated because it seemed like no matter how hard he tried, he kept self-sabotaging and couldn't make progress towards his goals, right? He noticed that on weekends he would eat above his caloric recommendations. He had a really hard time sticking to a particular caloric target, and he just felt bad about the fact that he couldn't be adherent with his particular goals. So what did we do? Daniel and I hopped on a phone call to discuss why he was struggling to adhere to the particular recommendations that I was giving him, and why he felt frustrated with the lack of progress towards his physique-related goals, right? And again, Daniel was already starting in a healthy place, and he wanted to elevate his physique to the next level, which was, for him, having a six-pack, which would require him to lose, let's say, another 10 pounds or so, right? And so we had a conversation, and it was a really interesting conversation, right? We discussed what his goals were, which, as I mentioned, were to get a little bit leaner, get in better shape. But then we discussed why those goals are important. And then we discussed, on top of that, what sort of changes would be necessary or sacrifices would be necessary to achieve that goal, which is the part of goal setting that a lot of people don't really consider, right? So let me take you guys through this really quick. So my client is somebody who really enjoys food. He's a foodie. He likes going out to restaurants that he hasn't tried before. He enjoys trying different types of cuisine. He enjoys doing those things guilt-free. He enjoys traveling with his family maybe once or twice every 3 or 4 months. And these behaviors are by no means inherently bad, but they are counterproductive when you're trying to take your physique to the next level, right? One thing I explained to him and we had a conversation about is that the leaner you try to get, the exponentially more difficult it becomes, right? Going from 30 to 25% body fat is difficult for some people, but objectively it's not as difficult as going from like 12 to like 8% body fat, right? The leaner you are, the exponentially more difficult it becomes to get even leaner. And so that was one of the main themes of that conversation we were discussing. I was like, well, man, I'm all for you achieving your goals. I will support you, but we need to identify whether these goals are actually important to you or not. And achieving those goals is going to come with certain sacrifices, right? You may not be able to go out as often, or if you do, you have to be more diligent about your food. Or when you travel, be as free or liberal with your food intake. You have to be a little bit more diligent about your physical activity. We may have to increase your physical activity, which is going to take time away from your family, for example, right? And so when we had that conversation and we identified what are some of the sacrifices that are necessary to achieve that particular goal that he had set for himself, we pretty much came to the conclusion that that goal wasn't all that important, right? He realized that that goal was just an arbitrary goal he set for himself because of what he sees on social media or whatnot. He thinks it looks cool, he wants to achieve it, but never once did he give any thought or consideration to the sacrifices that are necessary to actually achieve that goal. And that's really what I want to share with you guys in this episode and want to talk through, right? Because I feel like oftentimes many of us set goals for ourselves based off some sort of extraneous variable or some sort of extraneous reasons, like we see something that we like or whatever, right? Like kind of like arbitrary reasons to set goals. And those things are fine, right? Like if you have a certain goal and you want to achieve it, that's fine. But I think it's really important to ask yourself, why do you want to achieve that goal in the first place? And then decide whether the sacrifices that are necessary to achieve that goal are worth it for you, right? Are you willing to make those sacrifices? The answer might be yes, and that would be great. And the answer might be no, and that's also fine, right? It's just a mental exercise that everybody should do before just deciding that they want to achieve a particular goal. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss is, why do we set big goals for ourselves in the first place? And what are some different fitness-related goals that most people try to achieve, right? First off, many of us, well, when it comes to fitness-related goals, there's people who are unhealthy, right? Perhaps overweight, perhaps very physically inactive, perhaps have never really focused on their nutrition. And that type of person simply has the goal of being healthier, losing some weight, getting in better shape, to live a longer life, to reduce the risk of disease. And I'm all for that, right? I think that general health goal is something we should all strive to achieve, because we should all try to be as healthy as possible if we care about living a long, healthy life, which again, most of us do, right? Now, there's a whole host of different goals that are pretty much vanity-based goals. And keep in mind, I'm not against vanity-based goals at all. I have vanity-based goals, right? But I think it's important to understand that those vanity-based goals may not be as important to us as some things in our overall lifestyle, right? For example, for me, I really enjoy spending a couple hours with my son after work. If I wanted to be a little bit leaner, it might take away from that because I might have to go outside and do some cardio, right? And so the fact that I want to achieve a particular vanity-based goal is not as important to me as spending some time with my son. On the other hand, if I was overweight or obese and I was in really bad health and I was at risk for like a heart attack, for example, or I had type 2 diabetes, I might be more willing to take time away from my family to really focus on my health, because that's essentially going to help me live longer and spend more time with my family ultimately, right? So it's really important to weigh the importance of the particular goal you have relative to the importance of the sacrifices that you have to make, is essentially where I'm trying to get to, right? And some of these vanity-based goals, like having a six-pack or getting super jacked or whatever the goal is, they're pretty superficial. And again, there's nothing wrong with these superficial goals, right? Everybody can live their life however they want to live. They can decide to do the things they want to do. And if you want to have a six-pack and live a fairly restrictive life when it comes to nutrition, training, whatever, that's fine. That's your prerogative, right? I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do. But it's important to understand that most times when we set those kinds of goals, it's simply because we're either comparing ourselves to others. We see stuff on social media, right? We're scrolling through social media all day. We see people who look absolutely incredible, people who are really strong, really muscular, in fantastic shape. And I think it's also important to understand and think about the fact that the things that people choose to share on social media isn't necessarily their reality, right? For example, pictures of dudes who look fantastic with a six-pack, or women who look really lean and are in really great shape. They usually take pictures after a workout when they have a really good pump, so their muscles are nice and full. They take pictures under really good lighting conditions. Some of these people are on performance-enhancing drugs and they're not super honest about it. So what we see on social media is a skewed perception of reality, right? And then we base our goals based off of what we see on social media. See, that's literally step one of what's wrong with having some of these extreme vanity-based goals, right? And then when we try to work towards these goals and we maybe spend a couple of months trying to get there, and we see that we're not looking like the people that we admire on social media, we get frustrated. But we never consider these other factors, that what people are sharing on social media most times is not the reality. On top of that, oftentimes the people that look absolutely fantastic, again, six-pack, abs, lifting a crazy amount of weight, looking great, etc. Whatever it is, whatever your goal is, these people, their entire lives revolve around fitness, right? Like fitness is their career. I'm in the fitness industry, right? I spend probably like 10 hours in the gym every week, which is a lot of time for a lot of people. But for other people, like some of these other influencers who are like fitness models or whatnot, they might be spending 20 or 25 hours in the gym, right? And so, again, you don't see that part of it. You don't see that part of it at all when you're just scrolling through Instagram or watching videos on TikTok or whatever it may be. But it's important to note that that level of commitment, that level of sacrifice is required to achieve that particular type of physique. So number one, first thing to consider is really think about why you're setting a goal for yourself. Again, if you want to get to 10% body fat, if you want to be ripped, if you want to be whatever it is you want to be, that's fine. Just make sure that you're really thinking about why you're setting a goal in the first place. And then it's important to consider whether these goals align with the particular lifestyle that you're trying to live. Okay? Because it's important to consider, like, what type of lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to spend 5 hours in the gym every week? Do you want to spend 10 hours in the gym, 15 hours doing exercise? Again, none of these goals are health focused, right? This is like beyond health. This is strictly vanity-based goals. And again, it's important to consider whether those goals interfere with the lifestyle that you're trying to live. The next thing that is important to consider are the sacrifices that are required to achieve extreme fitness goals. And again, I think we talked a little bit about these, right? Usually when I work with my clients, I don't tell them they can't go out to eat, they can't go to social events. Usually we talk about how to make different dietary modifications to be able to enjoy those types of things while still making progress towards your goals. But that's not the type of the recommendation that you can give somebody who has an extreme fitness goal. Again, being 8% body fat, being super ripped. That is an extreme fitness goal. For most people in the general population, that is unattainable given their lifestyle, right? So it's important to really think through what kind of sacrifices are necessary to achieve these goals and whether or not those sacrifices are actually things that you want to sacrifice, right? So for example, I'll use myself as an example. I sit around probably 15% body fat. I would love to be 10% body fat. I think it looks really cool. I've been there before, so I know what's required to get there, right? At 10% body fat, I have a six-pack, abs are showing, I look great, I feel great. But in order to get there, I'd have to make a lot of changes in my current lifestyle that I'm not willing to change right now, right? First off, I'm pretty liberal with my food intake. I've been in this nutrition space for years, so I know pretty much how to eat to maintain my body weight, right? But I go out to eat maybe 2 or 3 times a week with my wife. We go out to nice restaurants. We don't worry about our caloric intake. I don't track my calories. I don't really do a ton of cardio every week. I just do my lifting. And then I spend a lot of time with my wife and my son. If I wanted to get to 10% body fat, I'd have to be more strict around the foods that I eat. I wouldn't be able to be as liberal when I go out to dinner, right? Like I wouldn't just be able to order something off the menu and not worry about how many calories it has. I wouldn't be able to go to birthday parties, weddings, celebrations, events with friends and just enjoy it fully. I wouldn't be able to have 2 or 3 drinks when I go out with some friends and not worry about the calories and the alcohol. I wouldn't be able to just chill for 4 or 5 hours after work. I'd probably have to go do some cardio. And so those are sacrifices that I've really thought about, and I don't want to make those sacrifices. Why? Because I'm really healthy, right? Like, I don't have blood pressure issues. I don't have glycemic regulation issues. I'm strong. I feel good. I'm flexible. I'm mobile. I feel good cognitively. My health is not an issue, right? So achieving that goal would be just solely a vanity-based goal. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, my lifestyle, the way I live right now, I don't want to change those things. I really enjoy my lifestyle. And that means that I don't have a 6-pack. And guess what? I'm fine with that, right? I'm perfectly fine with that because I'm confident in my body. I'm happy with the way my body looks. And again, I wouldn't want to change those things about my lifestyle in order to achieve that particular goal. Would I love to have a super lean, ripped physique, be 10% body fat, and not have to change anything about my life? Sure, I would absolutely love that. But the reality is that that's not really a possibility, right? I'd love to tell people that they can achieve their particular physique-related goal without sacrificing certain things about their lifestyle, but that's just not possible, right? Again, I would urge anybody who's in a place that's very unhealthy, like they don't really think about their nutrition at all. Maybe they eat mainly processed foods. They don't eat any fruits or vegetables. They're overweight. They don't exercise at all. I would really urge that person to change their lifestyle and take on some healthier habits, right? Because at the end of the day, that's going to improve that person's quality of life. That's going to improve or reduce their risk of developing certain diseases. That's probably going to increase their overall lifespan. So it's adding positive things to their life. But somebody who's already healthy, who has a pretty healthy diet, who exercises regularly, who eats plenty of fruits and vegetables, who doesn't have cardiovascular issues, who doesn't have glycemic regulation issues, who isn't overweight, right? And I fall into that category. I wouldn't necessarily ever tell that person that they have to achieve a certain vanity-based goal because it probably interferes with their lifestyle. And you have to think, what gives you more joy in life? Your overall lifestyle, enjoying time with your family, exercising the way you do already, being able to prioritize your career, being able to prioritize all these things, or achieving the particular vanity-based goal, right? And again, for some people, it might be achieving that goal, but it's important to really think about which of these gives you more joy in life and which of these do you rather pursue? Because you can't do both at the same time, right? If you want to achieve a certain goal, sacrifices have to be made. There's no way around it. And it's all about determining whether those sacrifices are worth it or not. Alrighty, guys. So to wrap this episode up, there's a couple of things that I want you guys to really consider when it comes to achieving certain goals, right? And I'll discuss where I'm at in my fitness journey too, because maybe that relatability really helps you determine where you are along your fitness journey too, right? So first things first, you don't need to be ripped to be healthy. They're not the same thing. And actually, being excessively lean is not healthy because it comes with its own health complications because a certain amount of body fat is actually really important for appropriate hormonal function. That being said though, you don't need to be super ripped to be healthy, right? The first thing you need to determine with fitness related goals is like, what is your goal and why is that your goal, right? Are you simply trying to improve your health? Do you want to live a happy, healthy life? Or do you have more extreme goals? And again, there is no right or wrong here. These are just conversations that you have to have with yourself and really determine what your goal is, right? And why is that your goal? Why is it important to you, right? For somebody, for example, who is in the fitness industry and their whole life revolves around fitness, for that person, their why as to why they want to have a 6-pack is probably a lot more important to them than somebody who is middle-aged, has a family, is well off financially already, is successful at their career. Because the person in the fitness industry, their career probably to a certain degree is influenced by what their physique looks like. And if they're a little bit leaner, they probably have a little bit more influence. They can make a better income. They have more success in their career. So for that person, their why for achieving that particular physique is a lot stronger, right? It's a lot more important to them. So step one is, what is your goal? And really think about, why is that goal important to you? Two, really consider that goal in the context of your lifestyle, right? What are some things I need to change in terms of the way that I live to achieve that particular goal, right? There's always going to be some sort of sacrifice to achieve a particular goal. And again, if you're somebody who's pretty unhealthy, has never really focused on their nutrition, their training, their habits, or anything like that, I really do urge you to make lifestyle modifications so that you can live a healthier life, so that you can improve your quality of life, so you can improve your longevity. It will improve every aspect of your life positively to really focus on improving your health if you live a pretty unhealthy life right now, right? However, for people that are healthy and they want to achieve that next level of fitness, it's really important to contextualize that particular goal within the context of your lifestyle. Really think about what sacrifices would be necessary, and then determine whether those sacrifices are things that you're willing to give up, right? And then just think about the fact that the more extreme your goal is, the more sacrifices are going to be necessary. The more extreme those sacrifices are going to have to be, right? There's reasons that competitive bodybuilders are not going out on the weekends to eat when they're getting ready for a show. They're not having alcohol. They're training like crazy. They're doing a ridiculous amount of cardio. It's not for fun. It's because it's necessary, right? So it's important to consider the extremeness of your goal and the extremeness of the sacrifices. So going back to the conversation I had with my client, Daniel, we realized that, hey, getting super lean is probably not something that's really important to him. But we discussed, instead of losing 10 or 15 pounds, he still does want to get a little bit leaner. So instead of losing 10 or 15 pounds, we just worked on losing about 5 pounds. It's a more realistic goal. It still gets him a little bit leaner because he mentioned that he does care about looking a little bit leaner because he wants to achieve that. He likes that look. But maybe his goal isn't as extreme as he once thought it was. So we dialed back the intensity of some of the things that we were doing. He's having a much slower and more realistic approach towards his goal. And he's realizing that smaller goal still makes him happy, still has him working towards something, but it's a lot more manageable. And the sacrifices necessary in his overall lifestyle are not as extreme as his original goal. So what I want you guys to get from this episode is really to think about what your goals are, why they're important to you, and whether or not you actually want to pursue a particular goal. Because all too often I work with clients who are really frustrated because they're not making progress towards their goal. And it's usually because of some lifestyle related stuff, right? They like going out to eat on the weekends 2 or 3 times, not worry about it. And so when I ask them like, well, do you want to stop doing that? They're like, no. I'm like, well, those behaviors right now, like there are ways to modify them, but those behaviors don't necessarily align with the goal you want to achieve, right? And so that's essentially the conclusion of the conversation that you need to have with yourself and determine whether or not you're pursuing the right things. Because the worst thing in the world is wanting to achieve something, not achieving it, feeling frustrated, feeling like a failure. And sometimes it's not that we're not trying hard enough. It's not that we're failures. It's not any of that. It's the fact that we're just chasing the wrong thing. So if there's anything you take from this episode, it's that you really need to be careful. You really need to be careful when you decide to pursue a particular goal. Myself, right now, I mentioned I'm not really working towards getting leaner or having a six-pack or anything like that, but I really enjoy training. I really enjoy my performance in the gym. So my goal right now is just to slowly build muscle and increase my body weight. I'm working on eating more food, actually, which feels really good. I'm working on really pushing myself in the gym. And that fits into my lifestyle because when I go out to eat, I'm like, okay, my mentality is like, this food is nourishing my performance rather than this food is helping me gain or lose weight. So it reframes the way I think about all of my behaviors because my goal is different, right? Anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Quick favor, please. If you're watching this on YouTube, take a second to subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up. It helps me a ton. And if you're listening to this on whatever podcast app you're using, I would really appreciate if you took a second to leave a rating for the episode. I do these episodes completely for free. They take a lot of time and work, and that's one quick and easy way that you can show your appreciation. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll catch you in next week's episode. Peace.